Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Lieutenant Colonel Mark Archbishop, retired, and I would like to welcome you to Lieutenant Colonel Rolf Miller's retirement ceremony honoring 39 years of distinguished service to his country. The presiding official for today's ceremony is Colonel Michael Drop Acid, retired. As a reminder, the playing of the national anthem, military members will stand at attention while civilian attendees place their hand over their heart. We would also like to remind guests to silence all cell phones and electronic devices at this time. Please stand for the playing of the national anthem and the right of official party, and remain standing for the invocation.
Advance the colors. Stand by. Forward. Hearts. Step. Colors. Halt. Present. Heart. Ort. Hunt. Colors turn. Harsh.
Lieutenant Colonel Alan Thief Knapp, retired, will now lead us in the invocation.
Ladies and gentlemen, please bow your heads. Lord God, we recognize that you rule over all creation. It was your wisdom that set the planets orbiting the stars. It was your genius that allowed light and heat to be transmitted to the earth from the sun. As humans, we become proud of our achievements in satellite technology, but we've only copied what you have already done. Our satellites are far smaller, far weaker, and they perish far more quickly than what you have spoken into existence. So we humbly recognize your power, your wisdom, and your eternal nature. Today, Lord, we want to thank you for granting our brother in arms, Rolf Miller, the successful career that he has had. You have given him courage to offer up his life for his nation. You have given him a strong body that he has used to defend his nation. You have also given him a sharp and inquisitive mind that he has applied to evaluate threats and to protect the people of our nation. This nation calls itself one nation under God, and our coinage claims, "In God we trust." It is this nation that Colonel Miller has served and defended. Lord, we thank you for the successful career that you have given Rolf, for his family and the legacy that he leaves behind. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Thief. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. And it looks like we've got pretty much standing room only, but if you have an empty seat, you raise your hand so maybe someone in the post can come sit down. Oh, no one wants to sit up front. Fair enough, I get it. Okay. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please be seated. Sit down. It's my pleasure to introduce the official party. Presiding official for today's ceremony is Colonel Michael Drop Acid, retired. And of course, our honoree for today's ceremony is Lieutenant Colonel Rolf Spock Miller. We are also pleased to extend a special welcome to the following honored guests. Please hold your applause until all have been recognized. His children, sons Uzai and Atesh. Sisters Ramala Johnson, Heather Patrick, Melinda Miller, Richard Patrick, and Ramila Johnson's husband, Trude Johnson. We are also honored to have with us today Colonel Adam Fisher, Commander, 310 Space Wing. Colonel Michael Sheets, IMA to the A2 Director, Headquarters AETC. Colonel Guy Spike Morley, U.S. Air Force, retired. Colonel Kyle Charles, U.S. Air Force, retired. Colonel Daniel Burke, U.S. Air Force, retired. Colonel Richard Birchfield, U.S. Air Force, retired, and his wife Debbie. Colonel Kimberly Lamberton, U.S. Air Force, retired. The theme here, right? So, also Colonel Kirk Peters, U.S. Air Force, retired. Colonel Crisco Todd, Chief of Training and Chief of Standout. I'm sorry, I know I got that wrong. Anyway, you just told me last minute. Anyway, and then also Chief Master Sergeant Scrappy Truesdale, U.S. Air Force, retired. Chief Master Sergeant Ron Holliday, U.S. Air Force, retired. Master Sergeant Alan Black, U.S. Air Force, retired. And Dr. Brian Argo. And Chief Master Sergeant Benjamin Millsbaugh, U.S. Air Force, retired. And Aiken, no, Hader. Colonel Aiken, retired. I apologize, we can get these last minutes, that happens, but anyway. And family, well, let's also welcome all families, commanders, right, directors, chiefs, friends, co-workers, and associates. We are glad you're able to be here today to observe this special occasion. Your presence here is greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Wally, please. Wally, come sit up in the front. Walter Stanton.
Just got called out. Okay. Well, it wouldn't be appropriate or, an aggressive retirement if we didn't go off script, right? So I've got this thing, I'm supposed to introduce somebody who's going to do a big thing because they think they're kind of a big deal. And today's ceremony, so that, they can do this thing for the aggressive. But again, I'm an aggressor and I've been issued an official letter of marque, which gives me some leeway and decorum and that no reprisals, so I'm going to do what I want. And so, gave me a mic, Spock. Okay, so anyway, but again, right? Once an aggressor,
Always an aggressor.
Amen. Okay, hey Spock, when you asked me to do this a while back, my first thought was how many people either said no or did you ask before me? But I want to let you know I'm really, really happy to be here and really honored to be here as well and be a part of this. I know it was a big movement, but thank you very much. And I'll get on with the rest of the stuff. Hey, when Spock first mentioned he was retiring, we discussed a few things about what he wanted to do for the ceremony and how it was going to go, right? So, when you have someone who's served as long as he has in the world's greatest Air Force, I already knew he had been in a long time, right? Because we were commissioned together 20 plus years ago, and I knew it had been a long time. But when he said 39 years and 9 months, I was like, holy, you know what, right? So, but it's a testament to your dedication. But if you look at it this way, it's only 14,518 days, which is not really that long. Anyway, wow, right? So Spock, you used to hearing wow about that because it is a big deal. I know that whenever I tell people I did 39 years in my mere 39 years and 2 days, that they're like, wow. And I'm like, yeah, it wasn't that bad. I really enjoyed it. But I also know that I got to be a part of the best squadron that the Air Force ever produced. Okay. Spock and I are both Mustangs. We were both prior enlisted in the 26th, prior also at the 14th Test Squadron. And we were both commissioned with the 26th 20 plus years ago. When people said that, I'm skipping around. But anyway, when people say, being that long, it was really about the experience of being a member of the 26th. And a lot of that had to do with Colonel Morley and what he built into the squadron. When I left the aggressors, every squadron I was in, I tried to bring that to it. I utterly failed in every attempt. But nonetheless, everything you did, sir, was a testament to the people that are here to witness this awesome occasion. So one last thing, Spock is a plank owner of the 26th Aggressor Squadron. That means he was a founding member on the day the squadron stood up on the 1st of October 2003. Spock is the remaining plane coder. He's the remaining plane coder, the last one. He's nearly outlasted an entire squadron in its history, right? So that's not something that you ever see very often. When we happen to be a first plane coder, we also happen to have the very first plane coder, Colonel Guy Moore. And I'm going to bring him up here right now so he can make a presentation as well and say a few words.
I'm going to go off script because I don't have one. But I do want to mention just a few things here. You're going to hear the term plank owner quite a bit, and a lot of you don't even know what that is, so you deserve an explanation on that. And a little bit about the history, why this really matters, he being the last plank owner. It's a Navy term, a Navy tradition back in the old wooden days sailing ships, that when a ship was first commissioned and brought online, those first crew members that put her to life, those are the plank owners. And so at the end of its service life, when it was brought out of commission, they would have a ceremony for that. They would have the original members there, in which they hold up the planking on the deck of the ship and give a piece of plank to each one of those members, signifying them as plank owners, as the ones who were truly the foundation that made that ship happen, and everything that followed from that. So the 26, you'll hear that a lot, the space aggressors. The first 3 years, when 527 stood online as aggressors, we were a fledgling piece of that, a flight that we're developing from there. And when I started, it was asking the question, who are my people? Don't have it. What's the mission statement? Don't have it. What's our directive? Don't have one. What's our equipment? Don't have it. And so on and so forth. We had nothing. So the only way to bring 0 to 100 in that amount of time was finding the best people. And those were going to be the plank owners. So gentlemen, you see here, a whole bunch of others that are out here, those are the plank owners that by 2003, when the 26 stood up, we were already ready to go. We did a great many things. 9/11 happened in the first year of the activation of the space aggressors, and our mission exploded from there to be doing combat support. So it was a whole lot of things, a whole lot quickly, and these are all the people who made that happen. And we aren't, when we stood up as the 26, we're honored to get that because the squadron itself is 37,576 days old. Doesn't sound that bad when you say it that way, but that takes us back to 1917. It's been around a long time, doing many things, and that's why I do have to explain that. Why? Because all of our best decisions were made. This is our squadron bottle. It comes to us with different ceremonies, retirements, get-togethers, going away parties and stuff like that. And that is mostly to symbolize and represent those people that came before us, all the way back to 2017. So this is a bottle of Grey Goose. It's a product of France. And that is where the 26 got its chops, 1977 in World War II, 1917 in World War I, where they started. And it was one of the first 5 squadrons that would become the United States Air Force. So we got our chops starting in France. This is representation of that. It was a pursuit squadron in the 20s, but from the 30s to the 60s, it was a squadron within a group that made up what's called the 11th Bomb Squadron. They were called the Grey Geese. So Grey Goose, obviously the right name for that to represent this. And then when we started the air aggressors, the first 5 air aggressors, 26 and 527 were one of those 5. And that's where the air aggressor mission started. They were to replicate the Soviet threats that were out there. So that's the drink itself is vodka to represent, acknowledge the air aggressor start. And we were proud to take on the mission again as something new, space aggressors that we brought. Now, I would normally go over and hand this to him, but he's got cooties. He's been sick for a few days. But I do want to say, Spock, thanks for being a member of the 26. Thanks for being a plank owner and everything that you and everybody else did that. And thank you for being part of that. Cool.
I love the history of our squadron. Okay, now we'll get back on track, okay? Is this on?
No.
I broke it.
Spike broke it.
This needs a battery. What's that? We're gonna wing it. Okay, very good. So ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce Colonel Michael Drop F. Retired.
Of course. This is a basic restroom. Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Ivywild. Thanks for taking time out of your schedule to join us as we celebrate. I think somebody's already mentioned Spock's 39 years and 9 months of service to our nation. I'd also like to offer a special thanks to the leadership and airmen of the 14th Test Squadron for supporting the ceremony on the drill weekend. UTA time is precious, so I'm grateful for your confidence to support this. As a founding member of the 14th, it's gratifying to see a quarter century after we stood that squadron back up as a space test organization that still care about taking care of it. For the record, like everyone else, I'll be talking a lot about Rolf as a founding member of the 26th Space Aggressor Squadron, but I did want to acknowledge, and I think Spike already alluded to it, that the 26th started. Bad for 26th.
No.
It broke again?
Yep.
Spike? All right. If I project like
There you
this.
go.
There we go.
Okay, before I say anything else, though some of you are aware that I spent the last 4 days pretty sick with the flu. Now, I'm not infectious, other than my infectious personality, my boyish charm, and now you're going to take it away from me. Oh, you're going to fix it. So while Arch is working that, I wanted to acknowledge the fact that the 26th began as a. Wow, this is good. By the way, Rolf, I just wanted to say it's a bold move, having more than 4 space aggressors with speaking roles on the stage today. We've all learned the hard way what that is. All right, can you hear me now? Awesome. Is this the right projection distance, or do I need to lean in?
There we go. That's it right there.
You people. All right. Without the 14th Test Squadron, there might never have been a space aggressor program, let alone multiple space aggressor squadrons. So it seems fitting that Rolf, as a founding member of the 26th should serve. Wow, that's rough. This is good bourbon. His final assignment in the 14th, where it all began. It is the Circle of Life. And because it's Rolf, of course, we're holding this ceremony in a brewery, and because he's a space aggressor, of course, that brewery is also a distillery, once an aggressor. Always an aggressor. And to that, I hope everyone is taking advantage of the adult beverages on offer. But to quote the great space aggressor philosopher, Robert Resaby III, if you know your limit, don't exceed it. If you don't know it, don't start. And if neither of those work out, let us get you a ride home. What we write on your face in Sharpie will eventually wear off. I'd like to thank Tech Sergeant Ferris for doing the hundreds of things required to set up a ceremony like this, and for the Honor Guard for the day's flag honors. Of course, there's also my brother and fellow aggressor Arch, serving as our master of ceremonies, and my other brother and also fellow aggressor Thief for offering the invocation. Arch is, as ever, a silver-tongued Texan, as if there is any other kind. And Thief, or just sit down. As always, sir, you are a warrior poet. Thank you for inviting the divine into today's ceremony. Once an aggressor. Always an aggressor. Of course, we have our proffer and our escorts. We've got several senior leaders, and many of you were not properly named, and I'm not going to make up for that. Although I do see Rich Birchfield in the back, so thanks for being out here, Rich. It's been a while since I've seen you. Today is a family reunion. And I always like to point out that our formal ceremonies are one of the many things that set the military apart from our civilian counterparts. Their structure, their pomp and circumstance, the honors we pay to our nation and our honoree, highlight and renew the ties that bind us all as military professionals look to one another. But while we pay these appropriate respects to nation and service, this ceremony isn't for the Air Force, or honestly for Rolf himself, but for Rolf's family. The people who've loved him, who've raised him, and supported him during his 4 decades of service and the many hardships that entailed. So while Arch has already recognized you all, please allow me to add my welcome and say thanks. So, Jose and Atesh, Melinda, Tunde and Rima, Richard and Kim and Heather, and I know Chuck and Cheryl could not be here, but I understand Cheryl's doing well, so our prayers are with her and with Chuck. Today is for you all. You are the reason Rolf has served, what he has fought for to defend his entire life. If you hear nothing else from me today, hear this. Thank you for giving us this man. Thanks for raising him right, for always supporting him, and thank you for understanding when duty took him away, often to far-flung corners of the world, and into places that put his life in danger. I know he sometimes missed holidays and family events, and nothing will ever replace that time. I can only assure you that that time made us a stronger nation. So welcome again, and thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, my job as the presiding official is pretty simple. I ask the honor guard to advance the colors because every official ceremony must have our nation's flag and place of honor, and rightly so. I talk a little bit about Spock's career, hopefully make a few jokes at his expense. And this is Spock, so I assure you there is plenty of fun. I then asked Arch to publish an order for a decoration and a retirement order. We take some photos. I turn the floor over to Rolf to share his thoughts on what 4 decades of service has meant to him. Simple, and yet, as has already been alluded to, today, not so much. Because today is special. Today marks the retirement of the last member of the founding cadre of America's Space Aggressor Program, the last founding member of the 26th Space Aggressor Squadron, and the airman who served longer in the 26th than any other who ever wore the Red Star, 15 and a half years. Hell, it might have been the longest serving member of the 26th since its founding in 1914 as the first aero company, the New York National Guard. So today we're not just celebrating a life given in service to our nation. Today we mark quite literally the end of an era. But to understand how we got here, we have to roll the clock all the way back to 1968, to Ely, Nevada, where Rolf was born. Now, the family moved to Colorado Springs by the time he was 4, and again to Westminster, Colorado, and Chuck and Cheryl married. And it was there that Rolf lived until he graduated high school and immediately enlisted in the Air Force. I asked Rolf, why did you decide to join the Air Force? Now, when I ask that question, I usually expect people to pause and give it some thought as they pull back the veil of the years and analyze the motivations of their younger selves, but not Rolf. He immediately said, because it was my path to college. But then he did pause. My family wasn't wealthy, so if I paid for my own college, my parents could spend more on my siblings' education. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't think when I was 18, I was even capable of such second and third order thinking. It speaks to how Rolf was raised, certainly, but it also points to the kind of man he already was, and as we can all attest, would only become more so over time. Having said that, and I know I'm stating the painfully obvious, Rolf very much has an engineer's brain. Cars, computers, electronics, toasters. He's always been that guy fascinated by the inner workings of machines, from the simplest to the most complex. He's the kid that would take apart a lawnmower just to see how it worked, then turn it into a go-kart. I didn't see his ASVAB scores, but I assume his mechanical comprehension and electronic information subtasks were just off the charts. Good enough at least that he was initially selected to be an automated flight control systems technician on the Air Force's MH-53 Payflow, our primary special operations and combat search and rescue helicopter from the Vietnam War until about 2008. Now, helicopters. They do not so much fly as beat the air into submission. Each is hundreds of thousands of parts, moving blindingly fast, running scaldingly hot, tempting physics to take notice and say, that ain't right. They're literally proof that with enough thrust and vector, even a brick can fly, as long as you can keep those hundreds of thousands of parts from tearing themselves into millions of pieces of shrapnel. So, enter Rolf Miller with his engineering brain at Hurlburt Field, Florida, in the 834th Aircraft Generation Squadron. As he put it, that job was so cool for me. I loved it. He loved the aircraft. He loved the automated flight control system, the autopilot for helicopters. by far its most complicated system of systems. It was his baby, and he was outstanding at keeping it, and thus the helicopter, operational. He was the go-to guy the special operations teams took with them when they went to the field. And during this time, he also began to reveal his budding space nerd side, starting his undergraduate work at Troy State, serving as the chairman of the education committee for the Emerald Coast Space Society, and volunteering to teach astronomy courses at a local elementary school in Fort Walton Beach. Shades of things to come. Of course, all things, even great assignments, eventually come to an end, and Rolf ultimately left the Fayetteville community for the Air National Guard at Buckley, getting back closer to family, and retraining into ammo for the F-16 unit up there, where he built bombs and missiles for the Vipers. And he did it well. Or so he says. Because you see, Spock provided me with no performance reports for the 13 years he served in the Air National Guard. He told me the Guard doesn't do performance reports. Now,
We do. Yeah, we do.
that may be true, but since those truly born to the space aggressor mission typically have a highly developed innate talent for hiding the evidence, I have my suspicions. As renowned space aggressor philosopher Robert Resby III many times opined, admit nothing, deny everything, counter-accuse. Now those of us of a certain age, which is most of the people in this room, all remember where we were on 9/11. And most of us who were here on the Front Range remember that immediately thereafter, we saw 2 ships of F-16 flying combat air patrols up and down the Pikes Peak region every day for several months. Now, usually an F-16s fly a Draconis only carry a pair of sidewinders for self-defense, so when you saw them fully kitted out with tanks and multiple AIM-120s, it got your attention. And over those few very tense months, there was a good chance those missiles had been assembled, tested, and loaded by one Sergeant Rolf Miller. And then not long afterward, Rolf and his squadron deployed to Jordan during the Second Gulf War, where the focus was on air-to-ground ordnance for the Vipers to support the Scud hunting mission. You may remember Iraq launching wave after waves of Scuds at Israel to try to draw them into the conflict. The Scud hunting missions were our effort to prevent that, which they ultimately did, and Rolf was in that fight. Rolf also spent his time finishing his master's degree with the intent of pursuing a commission once that was complete, but he ran into one of the hard truths of service in the Air National Guard. No one moves. No one leaves. And oftentimes, until somebody dies, there usually aren't any opportunities to develop and promote. It's like Groundhog Day, except Bill Murray never escapes the time. So Spock went to an officer recruiter and he said, I'm looking for a cool engineering job. And it just so happened that such a position was open in Spike Morley's Isle of Misfit Toys that would soon activate as the 26th Space Aggressor Squadron. And so, after 17 years of dedicated, though largely undocumented service, at long last, Spock's career finally took off, because that's when he came to work for me. Rolf was the final hire on the reactivation cadre, and his first drill weekend with the 26th was the squadron's reactivation ceremony and festivities. No pressure. Walk in that weekend, and one of the first people you meet is 26th alumnus General Jack Murphy, aviation legend, and among many other accomplishments, founder of the Air Force's aggressor program, and one of the leaders who established the Nellis Test and Training Range. In addition to many other World War II and Cold War 26 vets who came out to bear witness. And then we sent him off to get his commission, so it was a pretty busy first year in the 26th for Spock. Regretfully, Rolf only got to work for me for about a year before Bob, Claude, Shaq, Wrench, and I left the 26th to stand up the 380th. In spite of this, Spock quickly became a key player on the aggressor team, a reliable adversary operations engineer, and frequent deployer to Red Flag and other major exercises. Over the course of the next 15 years with the space aggressors, Rolf would grow into the mission and distinguish himself under 6 different squadron commanders. He grew from operator to instructor, helping to establish the aggressors' tactics sessions, earning multiple number 1 of a dozen or more squadron instructors and at least 1 instructor of the year nod. Multiple company grade officer of the quarter recognitions at the squadron and group level, and other honors. As in his enlisted career, he became the go-to guy for all aspects of the aggressor mission, and even deployed overseas to perform unwitting jamming on U.S. Navy ships underway. Then later deployed to the USS Carl Vinson and USS Stockdale to provide aggressor training to the comm operators. So they would now know how to recognize when the enemy was attacking their SATCOM and their GPS. Spock led aggressor teams as a field commander and eventually grew to be the chief of standardization and evaluation for the squadron, ensuring every space aggressor who came after him knew their business before they went to train U.S. joint and allied warfighters. But Spock went above and beyond mission requirements at every step. Organizational culture, that sense of belonging we all hope for when we join the military, is built by small degrees and over time. And Spock helped build that in the 26. He founded and edited the squadron's antagonist monthly newsletter that fortunately he also sent to squadron alumni such as myself. And while it gave practical information about the upcoming drill weekend and tips on filing travel vouchers, it also provided technical articles on electronic warfare, many challenging, god-awful DB math problems, highlights from members of the squadron and their families, and as important short articles about the history of the squadron founded in 1914 that had shed blood in every American conflict site. Some may also remember his annual fundraising for the St. Baldrick's Foundation, an organization founded to raise funds for childhood cancer research. The participants would and still do shave their heads as a symbol of support for children undergoing cancer treatment. And seeing a bald Spock once a year became something of a tradition. However, at some point, Rolf and some of his fellow St. Baldrick's Foundation volunteers got the questionable idea that perhaps they should all adopt superhero personas and dress in costumes during fundraising season. Spock's alter ego was the Blastoma Blaster, some of you may remember that, complete with tights, super soaker, maybe a cape. As we all know, no capes. Also, Spock missed the memo that men should not wear tights. Nor hang in groups with likewise tired men. I'm not going to describe Spock in tights as nightmare fuel, although you could make that argument. I'll just say it was a bold choice. One that obviously burned itself into my brain at least. But it also speaks to Rolf's character. His willingness to check his ego at the door and do something silly for a very serious cause. It was something we all respected and still do to this day. But those tights. Spock wound up being the last one out from the original founding cadre of 27, the last to leave the 26 to seek other challenges. But when he moved to the 310th Operations Support Squadron in 2019, it was specifically to build space adversary threat training for the entire 310th Space Force, which at the time was commanded by fellow space aggressor Hap Snagowski. And in less than a year, Spock published 3 comprehensive courses addressing multiple threats against the 12 weapon systems the 310th operated. It was a fairly short assignment, though. Recognizing Spock's talent, the 19th Space Operations Squadron poached him to fill a lieutenant colonel seat and put him into a more traditional engineering role, spacecraft engineering and analysis. In his position, he helped field the 5th GPS-3 satellite, but he also helped revamp the unit's mission planning cell, rewriting its ConOps and mapping future GPS mission units. Now, if you think of the purpose of an MPC, you think, well, they're in constant mission analysis mode, and mission analysis has to account for, among other things, the operational environment and, yes, threat laydown. And Rolf, unsurprising, was tasked to develop and lead adversary threat training for the GPS community, preparing GPS satellite operators to recognize enemy navigation warfare efforts and jamming and take actions to mitigate those effects. After a few years with the 19th, Rolf moved over to his final assignment with 14th Test Squadron as test engineer. I wish I'd gone sooner, he told me, because he was immediately put in charge of operational tests on a command and control system designed to remotely operate global offensive and defensive space electronic warfare systems, SATCOM jammers, SATCOM jammer detectors, and geolocation capabilities. The Blue Force analog much of the work Rolf has been doing as a space aggressor for the last 2 decades, and a role that perfectly leverages engineering brain and adversary mindset. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to today, 39 years and 9 months after Rolf first took the oath to serve his nation and maybe make it a little easier for his siblings to afford college. At one point when we were talking about this ceremony, I asked Rolf, When did you decide you were done? When did you know it was time? It's a question all of us who serve struggle with, and I found his answer really interesting. He said, after I joined the 26th, I told myself I would continue to serve as long as I felt I was contributing. He noted that after 15 years with the space aggressors, he felt he'd done as much as he could for the mission, and it was time to move on to new challenges. And despite all the good things he did in the OSS and 19 SOPs in the 14th Test Squadron, I never found that elsewhere, not quite. And yet, the aggressor mindset is an interesting thing. And it's not for everyone, and that's not criticism, it's just the reality. Aggressors, the best ones at least, are wired just a little bit differently. And that was by design. Spike's master plan was to take airmen from multiple Air Force tribes. 24 AFSCs covering everything from flyers, to engineers, to space and cyber operators, to signals intelligence analysts, to aerospace ground equipment technicians, to air battle managers, to survival, evasion, resistance, and escape instructors, to SATCOM and ground radio technicians, and throw them at a single mission that they would attack from all those different perspectives. And in doing so, as steel sharpens steel, we learn from each other, learn to violate our own comfort zones, learn to some extent, check our massive egos at the door, to understand the fight from multiple angles, and then to study and understand how our nation's enemies looked at that same fight. It builds a unique culture, an appreciation for what each Air Force specialty brought to the fight, and enforced a mental flexibility that drove and still drives us to know our enemies as we know ourselves. We say, once an aggressor,
Always an aggressor.
because once you've looked at America's war-fighting machine through the eyes of our enemies, you can never unsee it. You can never stop seeing it. You can never give up the fight. So when Rolf says he never quite found what he had in the 26th, I think he fails to give himself credit for what his role ultimately was. After 15 years on the 26th, there was no more qualified space aggressor in the world. There still isn't. And in every assignment since the 26th, Rolf inevitably found himself training the Blue Force against current and emerging threats. He taught joint warfighters to violate their own comfort zones and look at their capabilities through the eyes of our enemies. And like I said, once that mindset is established, there is no going back. Rolf wasn't meant to find the 26th again. Oh, wow. Because he was the 26th. You. The last of the founding cadre. Everything that meant he took with him. He transplanted the mindset. Ooh. Damn, I write well. He taught me well. He transplanted the mindset and a little bit of the culture everywhere he went. And thanks to his quiet efforts, he's never been one to pound his own chest. Generations of joint and allied warfighters understand that the enemy always gets a vote, and that the enemy never rests. Every one of us Spike Morley hired eventually moved on from the 26th. Some of us stayed in the Space UW mission, many didn't, but none of us carried the aggressor mission and mindset to the rest of the space community like Rolf did, so persistently and for so many years. And in that sense, I'd offer Rolf has proved himself always an aggressor, more profoundly than any of us. Rolf made a difference. And in the end, I suppose that's not a bad epitaph for 4 decades of service. Because in the end, that's what we all have to do. One final observation, and something Spock had to remind me of apparently, when he first came to work for me and we held our initial feedback session, I told him, you know, Rolf, the Air Force is gonna want you to do a full 20 years as an officer. Now that's me imitating Rolf, imitating me. It was a little hurtful. And he did it to my face because friends stab friends in the chest. But he never told me at the time that he was thinking, I've already been in for 17 years. There is no way I'm going to do 20 more years as an officer. There might have been an expletive in that statement that I'm judiciously removing. Still, here we are, 21 years after that conversation, with Rolf retiring as a lieutenant colonel, and I thought it appropriate for us to pause for a moment and just acknowledge and take deep comfort in the fact that I was right. It is tough being right all the time. For 40 years, Rolf answered his nation's call, wore the cloth of the Republic, one of the only 0.6% of the U.S. population who choose to serve in defense of the remaining 99.4. He served with honor, gave everything he had to his mission and his fellow airmen, and today leads the Air Force and the Space Force far better than he found them. And in so doing, he made us a stronger and safer nation. Oh, thus be it ever, when free men shall stand between their loved homes and the war's desolation. Spock, thank you for asking me to stand with you today as this far from the last chapter of your journey draws to a close. Thank you for your service. It's been a privilege to stand a turn of the watch with you and share in your story. Here's to us and those like us. Damn few. Once in a blessing. Spock, if you would join me at center stage. That's where we are. Hang on, checking the script. Did I turn your page? I asked you to join me. We're right there.
You're so humble, isn't it? When you showed me his book, I was like, oh my God. Anyway, okay, back on track. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce Colonel Michael Drop after retired. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the Colonel Michael Drop after retired. Lieutenant Colonel Rolf Miller. This thing still on?
No.
No.
Okay.
Get into it, please.
Yes, Brent.
Publish the order.
To all those who shall see these presents, greetings. This is certified that the President of the United States of America is authorized by Executive Order 16 January 1969, has awarded the Meritorious Service Medal First Oak Leaf Cluster to Lieutenant Colonel Rolf W. Miller for meritorious service 13 March 2022 to 28 February 2026. Lieutenant Colonel Rolf Miller distinguished himself in the performance of outstanding service to the United States while assigned to the 26th Space Aggressor Squadron, 310th Space Wing, Schriever Space Force Base, Colorado from 13 March 2022 to 28 February 2026. During this period, Colonel Miller integrated 13 reserve personnel across 4 Department of Defense operational test programs, establishing the model for future part-time support to the United States Space Force. Additionally, he oversaw a 6-member team in the comprehensive review and recertification of 112 technical orders for the next generation global positioning system, ground architecture, ensuring the verification of 107 critical procedures. Moreover, Colonel Miller incorporated adversarial doctrine into advanced training modules and coordinated the first ever cyber training scenario to prepare navigation warfare crews for success in the degraded environment. Finally, his leadership in the analysis and modernization flight during 5 missions culminated in the restoration of a failing $800 million satellite safeguarding the critical national asset. His singularly distinctive accomplishments, Colonel Miller, culminate a long and distinguished career in the service of his country and reflect great credit upon himself and the United States Air Force. Ladies and gentlemen, remain standing. Colonel Michael Assett, retired Wall. Colonel Michael Assett, retired Lieutenant Colonel Miller.
Publish the order.
Attention to orders. Special order number 3181967 Act 5. By the order of the Secretary of the Air Force, Lieutenant Colonel Rolf Miller, effective the 1st March 2026, you are relieved from current duty, 310th Space Wing, Pearson Space Force Base. Retired this first day of March 2026, per the Air Force Instruction 363203, in the grade of Lieutenant Colonel.
Whoop.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Lieutenant Colonel Miller will now be presented with the President's Certificate of Appreciation and the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force's Certificate of Appreciation. The Certificate of Appreciation reads, I extend you my personal thanks and sincere appreciation of our grateful nation for your contribution of honorable service to our country. You have helped maintain the security of a nation during a critical time in its history with a devotion to duty and spirit of sacrifice in keeping with the proud traditions of military service. I trust that in the coming years you will maintain an active presence in the armed forces and that the purpose for which you serve. For those who follow your footsteps will draw inspiration from your commitment, dedication, and sacrifices made to ensure the protection of our American freedoms. My best wishes to you for your happiness and success. Donald J. Trump. Every retiree receives a special retirement pin as a memento of their military service. At this time, Lieutenant Colonel Miller's family will place the pin on his lapel to symbolize his transition from active to retired status. Still crying after your speech. Ladies and gentlemen, airmen from the 26th Space Aggressor Squadron will now perform a flag folding ceremony in honor of Lieutenant Colonel Miller. The American flag has been the symbol of our nation's unity, as well as a source of pride and inspiration for millions of citizens. Born on June 14, 1777, the Second Continental Congress determined that the flag of the United States would be 13 stripes, alternating between seven red and 6 white, and that the Union be 13 stars, white in a blue field, representing a new constellation. Between 1777 and 1960, the shape of the flag and design of the flag has evolved into a flag represented before you today. The 13 horizontal stripes represent the original colonies, while the stars represent the 50 states of the Union. The colors of the flag are symbolic as well. Red symbolizes hardiness and valor. White symbolizes purity and innocence. And blue represents vigilance, perseverance, and justice. Traditionally, the symbol of liberty, the American flag has carried the message of freedom and inspired Americans both home and abroad. In 1814, Francis Scott Key was so moved at seeing stars and stripes waving after the British shelling of Baltimore's Fort McHenry that he wrote the words to the Star-Spangled Banner. In 1892, the flag inspired Francis Bellamy to write the Pledge of Allegiance, our most famous flag salute and patriotic oath. In July 1969, the American flag was flown in space when Neil Armstrong planted on the surface of the moon. Today, our flag flies in constellations of Air Force satellites that circle our globe and on the fin flashes of our aircraft in harm's way in every corner of the world. Indeed, it flies in the heart of every airman who serves our great nation. The sun never sets on our Air Force, nor on the flag we so proudly cherish. Since 1776, no generation of American has been spared the responsibility of defending freedom. Today's airmen remain committed to preserving freedom that others won for U.S. generations to come. By displaying the flag and giving it a distinctive fold, we show respect for the flag and express our gratitude to those individuals who fought and continue to fight for freedom at home and abroad. Since the dawn of the 20th century, airmen have proudly flown the flag in every major conflict on lands and skies around the world. It is their responsibility, our responsibility, to continue to protect and preserve the rights, privileges, and freedoms that we as Americans enjoy today. The United States flag represents who we are. It stands for the freedom we all share and the pride and patriotism we all feel for our country. We cherish its legacy, its beacon of hope to all. Long may it wave. Get like combat pay for those steps. All right, so we're going to go off script a little bit, real quick. We've got a presentation to make. Master Sergeant Alan Black, U.S. Air Force retired, will make a presentation to Lieutenant Colonel Miller.
What I love about this is going off script. Wow, you set the bar for it. So I want to tell you all about Rolf outside the military. No, I promise I won't do that. Rolf and I, what's funny is, we go back and Mike and Jeffrey, they're sitting in the front. So this entire time of 39 plus years that he's been in the Air Force, we've all been in the background in various stages in the Air Force. But the one thing is we all started together in 85 and 86. And it's really neat when you start talking to Air Force people and others, right? And you start finding out how much we overlap. And it's a lot. So I went to basic training in May of 1985. A month and a half later, I found out Arch is in basic training in 1985. A month after that, Jeffrey Purdo's in basic training, and it just goes on and on. So Rolf, I will tell you two important things about retirement. Number one, keep your DD-214 safe. It doesn't matter where else you keep that. Every single thing you do comes back to that form at some point. Number two, we're all here to help. We've been here with you 40 years. We'll be here with you 40 more years. I realize you took the right path. I should have joined the aggressor. One, cool saying, always an aggressor. Always an aggressor. What's an aggressor? Hey.
Do it again! Do it again!
But I will say this, I'll stand up here and try it. I was a Jungle Cruise skipper at Disney, so you get the dad jokes and all that with me. I'm also a public affairs officer, so I talk off script anyway, but not really just all in my head and I don't have to look at notes. But what a great summary of Rolf's career. I mean, it's fantastic. I know this guy. I mean, Paris, Amsterdam, Berlin, New Orleans, New York, DC. He's been to all my houses, and I've lived all over the world. And I did not know all the cool stuff he did. I mean, that dude, I gotta say, which tracks, because the first time I met him in 1986, shortly after he arrived at Hurlburt, met him where all good E2, E3s meet, at a kegger between two dorms. Because, that's what we do, right? And I looked at him, he says, hey, somehow we ended up listening to some music I like. And he's dressed Spock fits. Total nerd. And I'm like, oh man, you got the coolest music. And I'm like, there is no way this guy knows his bands. And it's like New Order, Depeche Mode, Echo and the Bunnymen, R.E.M., etc. Oh yeah, yes, he is. Clearly I picked the wrong job. But he's going in there, he's getting in there, so we became good friends. About a year later, these other two clowns out here with me show up. But for the next 40 years, we're all friends. We have been to each other's weddings. He was at my retirement. He was in my retirement. It's just, dude, you're not going to be alone. You're going to be with us, whether or not you like us, for the next 40 freaking years. You're going to come to my retirement in about another year from civil service. But I got to give it. I mean, that's a long time to stay in the military. I bolted after 20 and a half, because I was like, I'll go to the civilian side and do something else. But I have a lot of respect for Rolf. Not a lot of people do that. I mean, that is and the fact that you are not, and plank owner, love, because I work for the Navy now, love that you established after squadron, because that's a very significant milestone. And it's really rare. I'm here to tell you, absolutely almost incredibly rare. Go buy a lottery ticket tonight, by the way. That the starting plank owner is at the end of the mission of the unit or the ship or whatever it is. I mean, that is significant. The number of years involved shows Rolf's dedication to this whole thing. So I'm not going to keep you from what you've got to say, but I did feel the need to come up here and roast you, but really toast you for a fantastic career, and wow, proud to be your friend, buddy.
Thank you, Alan. Okay, let's see. Here's the really important part next. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor and privilege to introduce to you Lieutenant Colonel Rolf Miller, United States Air Force, retired. I'm 58 years old.
Okay, can everybody hear me? Yeah. Yes, and is it still on? Yes, it is, I can tell. Good. I want to make sure people online can hear. So, by the way, no shit, that really happened. He was my supervisor, and it was more than a year, by the way. And he did, in fact, come to me and tell me, you know, Rolf, the Air Force is going to want you to serve a full 20-year career as an officer. And I did indeed hold back on my true commentary to him, and there was a lot of expletives deleted. And 3 years ago, when I was planning my promotion ceremony for Lieutenant Colonel, I talked to him and I got him to commit to be my presiding official today. And I told him, if there's any chance you won't be able to do it, then you can preside over my promotion. But you need to be the person presiding over my retirement. Yeah, and I never, ever thought I'd do a 20-year officer career, and that's been over 21 now, so crazy.
Not again.
He's good at it. So they pulled a fast one on me by reading the retirement order before I got to do my remarks. This will make more sense in a minute. So, because I know everybody's here to see me retire today, but I have to be honest, I really do not want to retire. And I'm going to try and explain my mindset so that you can understand why this is so difficult for me. I went to basic training on July 1st of 1986. Ronald Reagan was the president. Many of the people that I serve with today were not born yet. So, in other words, that was a really long time ago. So, keep in mind, I was just a kid. When I joined active duty, and that kid, he learned amazing things. He got to do amazing things and got to travel all over the country. And if you think about it from the perspective of a kid who was fascinated with things like machines or anything related to engineering, my family, you know, remember what I was like as a kid and what I like to do and play with. Playing with toys in the basement, playing with toys in the backyard, digging, building in the backyard, out in the garage all the time building stuff, making things. Waking up very early while everybody was asleep on the weekends, I would go to the laundry room and build things and make things and create things and paint things, and my parents' bedroom was above me and they would wake up. So I got to pause and go off script for a minute. Been struggling with a lot of eye surgery, so everyone is a blur. So can my college friends raise their hands so I know where you are? All right, awesome. So you guys, you remember all the fun times we had and all the things that I used to do. Lots of tinkering, building, learning about building things, learning how things work. Dr. Argro, you remember what I was like. You know how my mind worked and what I was fascinated with. And also think about it from the perspective of my boys, 9 and 13, almost 10 and a 13-year-old. When we drive through Fort Carson and we see all the static displays of all the tanks and the helicopters, we love to get out and go play on that stuff. We crawl all over it. And you can't get inside it, you can't take it apart, but they're just thrilled to death. So there I was, still a kid who loved machines and tinkering and building things and learning about how things work. And I was allowed to spend my time going to school, learning about electronics, and learning about the details of airplanes and helicopters and how they work and why they work. And they even let me learn how to fix helicopters. They let me crawl all around inside them and on top of them and take them apart and dig into the electronics, dig into the schematics and the technical orders, and I lay out these long schematics and draw them with colored pencils. They let me learn how to diagnose problems and fix those problems. I spent a ton of time on those helicopters and inside them. That was not a job. Think about it, if my boys were allowed to do all those things, would they consider it a job? Hell no. It's playtime. Michael, Jeffrey, Alan, we met during that time. We lived in Fort Walton Beach. For a kid out of high school, that was a dream. You guys know me, you know my mind. Was that a job or was that fun time? I developed relationships with hundreds of people, all of whom have affected my life in tremendous ways, and I think about all the time. Then after active duty, the Colorado Air National Guard let me learn how to work on bombs and missiles. What kid doesn't like blowing stuff up? We even got to use C4 to blow stuff up. They let me roam on the flight line with the A7s and the F-16s. They sent that kid all around the world doing incredibly fun things and spending time with absolutely amazing people. Like my Cohen guys, can you guys raise your hand, Emma? There, now I know which general direction to look in. They even paid for my college. During my time in the Guard, I began that routine of going to unit training assembly weekends, one weekend every single month, without fail. And of course, throughout the year, every year we would spend all kinds of time together on annual training orders, doing just incredible things and going to amazing places and having so much fun together. So it was all about having fun. Then after about 13 years of that, I switched over to the Air Force Reserves at Schriever, and you've heard about the aggressors. And I got to learn how to jam GPS signals. Come on, for me, is that work? No, it's fun. It's so much fun. And even more fun than GPS is jamming satellites. We would build the dishes, put all that stuff together. That is just incredible for me. Cables, running cables, electronics, doing all that stuff, doing all the math. It was insane fun, and we would send signals up to real satellites and actually jam SATCOM. It was incredible. And I ask again, was that a job? No. I can't believe I got paid for all that fun. I mean, seriously, the joke is on United States Air Force. They gave me money to put in my pocket. And all I had to do was spend one weekend every month having an absolute blast with amazing people doing amazing things. Think about it from the perspective of my son who's a Boy Scout. Sometimes we get to spend weekends camping with amazing people and having a really fun time. But nobody gives us money. We have to pay. We have to spend money to go do that stuff. But the Air Force paid me to have a blast one weekend every month since 1990. Being allowed to spend my time with my comrades in uniform is a lifelong habit. And now I have to give that up. They aren't going to let me do those things anymore. I can't go to those classified briefings anymore and learn all sorts of secret and top secret stuff about what's really happening in the world and what kind of weapons we have and what they can really do. You know, when kids spend hours playing and having fun and playtime is over and it's time to stop and come inside or to go to bed, they don't want to stop. They don't give that up very easy. Parents, you know what I mean. And when you spend an entire weekend playing with your kids and having a blast, when the weekend's over, they don't want to quit, they get cranky, and they pitch a fit. And now here I am. I have to give all that up. This is not easy. This is a long-term habit for me. Maybe that makes it an addiction. I've been in the Air Force more than 2/3 of my life. Colonel Burke, wherever you are out there, maybe you can do the DB math on that. But it's a lot more than 2/3, and that's a big deal. You know, a lot of people are amazed at how long I've been in the Air Force and have asked me why I stay so long. So that was a big part of why, but ultimately the reason, without a doubt, was because of the 26th Space Aggressor Squadron. When Colonel Morley hired me, I had been in for about 17 years, and I had just returned from a war. And he told me that if I commission, I will need to stay and be an officer for at least 10 years. If I retire before that, then my ID card and my retirement certificate would say Tech Sergeant. So I decided I was okay with that. And I decided I would just stay in as long as I was having fun and contributing something greater than myself. And the aggressors just turned out to be the most incredible place to be. It was super exciting. We had an amazing mission. We had to figure out how to do something completely new. And the people and the culture was incredible. The Saturday evenings of almost every UTA weekend was a celebration for something or someone. And we all brought our families. So, we didn't lose our family time, and we got to spend time together. There was simply no reason to leave the space aggressors. But eventually, I moved on to the 310th OSS, and then to 19 SOPs, the GPS mission, and finally to my current home, the 14th Test Squadron, and the 4th Test and Evaluation Squadron with Space Force. So, I hope people understand better why I stayed for 39 years and 9 months. By the way, Chief Holiday, over 38 years. Chief Truesdale, over 35 years. So I'm not alone, and it's not a competition, but I just need to recognize there's a lot of people out there who love it so much also. So for me, today is really about each of you and how each of you has supported me and has affected me throughout this long journey, which is, I would say, a long time. And I have a lot of thank yous. I do, however, need to pause for a minute. So I'm going to transition to thank yous, and I have a lot of stories I really want to share, and I planned on weaving these in with my thank yous. Unfortunately, there are just so many stories, and I'm the only thing standing between you and beer. and me and beer, for that matter. Except the people online. I'm sure they're drinking. I sure hope they are. So first, I want to thank you to the team, my retirement team. Without them, this never would have happened. This is so much work. And the past few months, I had several eye surgeries, and some of it didn't go so well, and I keep getting really, really sick. So if it weren't for that team, this absolutely would not have happened. In fact, there's things that just didn't quite happen because of it. My college friends, they remember in college I used to get really sick all the time, like really, really sick, because that was a lot because I was stupid. And I didn't rest. I partied when I was sick. What an idiot, But I've learned better, and I've been resting a lot. In fact, something that really, really, really sucked for me is because of the government shutdown, October and November UTAs got canceled. And I was really upset because I was like, wait a minute, I'm being robbed. Like, that means December is going to be my only UTA weekend because we weren't having one in January. So I was upset. Like, I live for these UTA weekends. And this UTA weekend is a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And I was so looking forward to being there yesterday morning and being able to talk to the squadron and share some words. But no, I was too sick. I barely made it through the week. I could barely take care of my son and I, and we were both really sick. So I'm just really happy that I'm actually standing up here. Again, thank you to the entire team for putting this together. Next, my family. Thank you to all of my family members. You've been here with me through this entire journey. Melinda traveled to Florida when I was at Herbert Field. We went on this incredible road trip in this little tiny beat-up pickup truck that I borrowed from my scuba diver instructor. And
It broke down.
yeah. But it was fun. Melinda and my mom traveled to Turkey with me. That was pretty amazing. I have a lot of other stories I'd love to tell about my family, but again, beer.
Stories over beer are better.
Yeah, so the four people, Michael and Alan and Jeffrey, Rooster. Yeah. We have been through so many things and gone through so many places over the years. Like Alan said, I traveled with Europe, traveled with him through Europe. I've been to everywhere he's lived around the country. He and I have gone on all kinds of crazy road trips, and with Michael also. And over the years, somehow all of us managed to get together. Not always all four of us. It's been since my wedding that all four of us were together at the same time. Usually it's 2 or 3 of us. And thank you guys. And thanks for all the support all the time. Ammo! To my ammo brethren from the Colorado Air National Guard back there. We had some amazing times. They have stories that I don't want them to tell, and stories that they can't tell. Just tell the good ones.
Orange hair too.
Oh, yeah, actually, that's a good point. I was going to mention that. I can't believe they took me because I was a little punk. I had orange hair, and it was like short on the sides and long in the back, and I went to the interview with them, and they must have been really desperate. But Doc, I am so honored that you're here today. I'm so glad you're here so that I can tell you how much I appreciate everything I got from you. You were a great leader. You were a very inspirational leader for me, and I will never forget that. And I carried that through my entire officer career. He was just great. He had just the way to inspire me to want to do more and to want to do better and to be the best I could be. And eventually to stop dyeing my hair to cut it too. And to the rest of the guys from the bomb dump that are here, I just appreciate it so much, and I'll never forget all the great times we had. And I have more stories I want to tell, but I'm going to skip some of them. I will say that because we worked in the bomb dump, we had to qualify on the M16 every year, which was really cool, and it's a lot of fun. One thing that I learned in M16 training is that you always check out the weapon before you use it. Scott Tillman, raise your hand. Yeah. So you always check out the weapon and you go through everything and make sure everything's working, and you make sure you remember how to use everything. And also, really importantly, we do not mix alcohol with M16s. And Scott Tillman and I learned the reasons for that. We also do not get in Jeeps that are moving fast and hang out the windows and shoot while somebody is driving over sagebrush. It doesn't mix, and things can go really bad. And I'm pretty sure my friends in Nevada Online can appreciate that. A lot of gun stories with those guys. John, we had a lot of fun shooting a lot of stuff, and I'm sure we were probably drinking beer. Oh, and Todd Lubian, I'm so glad you're here. Sorry, but I have to tell this story because one thing throughout my career as a guardsman and a reservist, I prided myself that I almost never missed a UTA weekend. And I think one reason is because, you know, in the Guard, it was considered every UTA weekend is mandatory. Nowadays, in the reserves, it's a little looser. You know, they have this, you know, balance thing where it's like, yeah, you know, if you need to miss a UTA, you can get approval in advance, but it's possible to miss. I'm sure you guys remember one weekend, Quinn chewed our ass. Saturday morning, he shows up in front of everybody on fire, mad. And he says, Todd Lukian called me last night and left me a voicemail and said, hey, I'm not going to be at the UTA this weekend because I'm going white water rafting. And man, Quinn chewed our asses so hard for that. And he's like, you will always be at UTA weekend unless like you have an incredibly good excuse. And so maybe that's why, maybe I would have done it anyway, but I've very rarely missed UTA weekends.
Sorry, Rolf, I didn't know you got that.
So now, my college friends, you guys have been with me on this journey for a very, very long time. And thank you for coming. Thank you for being part of this all these years. We've had some great times, great travels. Some of you guys even came to Turkey with me and my mom and my sister. Scott Engelman, if you're online, I think he may have made 2 trips out there with us, and that was just a blast. And all the other great times we've had, and all the support I've gotten from you guys. ITT, worked for ITT for about 13 years doing R&D, and some of those people, guys, we had some amazing times and some epic parties. My guard unit was activated twice while I worked there. The second one was for the first one was 9/11, which she mentioned, Buckley. Our home dump, we put up Hill Air Force Base, Utah active duty unit was supposed to be the unit that would go up if something happened and put airplanes up with weapons to patrol the skies, and they couldn't get it. But Buckley, Coang, we did that instead. We scrambled, we came in, and we had our jets in the air. Our ship was really hot back then, and I don't know what it's like now, but that unit was amazing. And so that was the first time, and then the second time was for the second Gulf War. And my friends from ITT, you guys sent me care packages, books, all kinds of stuff, candies and stuff, which I probably didn't need. I remember I got addicted to sugar because we'd drive around all day delivering munitions and eating candy. And I got fat, and I realized at some point I was like, oh my God, I'm like if I'm not eating candy, I gotta go search for candy. It's crazy. but you know, they had the best intentions. So 26 asks. Thanks to everybody who's here, and I know there's a lot of plank holders tonight that are here. That's just amazing. I just like I don't even know where to start with the 26 because I could go on forever. It was just incredible, as you've already heard, and we did amazing things all over the world. We had amazing times, and we made a difference. And I owe so much. Colonel Morley, I owe you so much. You know, you gave new life to my military career. If I had not joined the 26 Space Aggressors, I would not have stayed in this long. It was just such an amazing place to be. There was no reason to leave. And yeah, thanks, Spike. I would not be here. I would have retired a long time ago if it weren't for you hiring me. always stories I'm gonna skip, so we can drink beer. So, people online, I appreciate all of you. My friend Bert from graduate school, he lives in Germany, he really wanted to come. He almost did, but it just didn't work out, he couldn't be here. But I know he's up drinking beer right now, because he told me earlier, he was ready. He's got his beers ready, so cheers, buddy, thank you. Thank you for everything. He comes every few years and visits me, and it's just awesome. And Nevada, I don't know how to start with this. I have a lot of friends, and they're really family, but not really blood related. And they've been with me my life since we were kids, and I spend time. I try to go out there at least once a year, and we have a lot of great times and a lot of great stories, many of which I cannot tell, and I hope they don't. So now this brings me to my boys. Now I can spend a lot more time with you guys. That 1 weekend a month, I won't be at reserves. I'll either be taking care of business so that I don't have to take care of it when I'm with you, or I'll be with you on the weekend. And whenever UTA weekends fall on my parenting weekend, those guys had to go to daycare all day Saturday, all day Sunday. So they hated that, obviously. What kid is gonna like that, right? So I know they're thrilled that I won't have any more UTA weekends, even though I am going to miss them, and I wish I still had UTA weekends. Congrats, guys, that's a gift I have for you. And also, while I'm on it, boys, I have gifts for you guys. It was way too big to bring your gift to Tesh. And Uzai and I, like I said earlier, we were incredibly sick all week. And something he and I talked about is that we're going to spend time picking out something together. But you can bet that the gifts are something interactive that we will do on this newfound free time that we have, spending time together. Spike, I have something for you, if you want to come up and get this. So, it's about airplanes, but it won't fly. So, when we had our Christmas party in December, he told this incredible story about these guys who raised an airplane from the bottom of the ocean. And it was the typical thing where it's like these guys were too young and too stupid to realize that they should not be trying to do what they did, and that it was not likely to succeed. So since they didn't know any better, they actually succeeded. So when he told that story, I knew that he needs to have this book. I have a copy of it. It's about airplanes that are in the ocean on Kwajalein Atoll. And I had a recent job as chief engineer, and so I was there for one of the radars there. And I was gonna that night, I was like, oh, I'm just gonna order it and send it to him. The next day, my retina detached, so things didn't go well for a few weeks. And a few weeks later, I realized, I never did order that book. And so I just figured, well, at least this way, instead of it going straight to him, it'll come to me and I can sign it and write it and stuff like that. So I just figured I'd bring it, give it to you today, sir. Cool. Okay, one last thing, and I promise we're gonna drink beer now. Boys, can you run up here for a sec, please? I would come down there, but I'll tell you what, those stairs are scary for me. here. So that's all I have. Again, thank you to everyone who's here. Thank you to everyone who's been part of this. Thank you to everyone online. And I'm sorry I didn't have time to tell a lot of great stories because I have so many. But that's it.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our ceremony for today. Lieutenant Colonel Rolf Miller and his family appreciate you sharing this special time with them. Please congratulate Lieutenant Colonel Miller and his family in the hallway. We have to set up the reception room for the food and stuff, so just be patient with that. And then we're going to finish with the Air Force song. I'll tell you that as soon as it starts playing, you start with Off We Go, right? Good?
Yeah.